available in this facility. We will be bringing some more chairs in from the rec department. In just a few minutes, they'll come in from the back door. They'll line up here at the front. We'll take a brief pause when they arrive to get more chairs installed. But I appreciate your patience on that. Let me just go over a couple of things to remind you there'll be no action tonight. We're taking no action on this except to listen to public comment as we do in a public hearing. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and I will be timing those. And if I pick up the gavel, that means your time has expired. Written comments that have been coming in, they have been shared with the commissioners and will be distributed on our sunshine list. Those can continue up to the final action and vote that will be taken by the board. And then I want to remind people, and we've had these hearings before. Let me remind you, and we've always gotten through them in a very civil manner, but I'd appreciate no heckling of speakers, no shouting out of speakers, and please no applause. And again, if you can refrain from commenting among yourselves, that can be very distracting for especially the person wanting to make a comment. So with that said, let me go to the next item, and that is item number 2, a public hearing for the proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, section 6.5.18, short-term rentals, to add a regulation that will amortize and discontinue the use of short-term rentals in the R1 and R2 zoning districts. The next item would be for a motion by the board to open the public hearing. Do I have a motion to open it? And a second? Second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Thank you. Our public hearing is now open. The next item will be Mr. Michael Mathis, who will make staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at our last meeting, I read the following memo. On July 22nd, 2024, the Town of Highlands Planning Board reviewed the proposed Unified Development Ordinance amendment regarding the amortization of non-conforming short-term rentals in the R1 and R2 residential zoning districts. Although they agreed that the proposed text amendment is consistent with the town's community plan or comprehensive plan, the recommendation was to deny the amortization amendment. The minutes from the meeting are in last month's Planning and Development Department report. And also I would ask for those that are here to speak at the public hearing tonight, if you would like to speak at tonight's hearing, I would ask that your conversation remain focused on the proposed UDO amendment. And that amendment is, so currently section 6.5.18B of the Unified Development Ordinance says, notwithstanding anything in this UDO, short-term rentals in operation as of September 15th, 2022 are non-conforming uses in the R1 and R2 zoning district. The proposed language in this section is notwithstanding anything in this UDO, short-term rentals in operation as of September 15th, 2022 are non-conforming uses in the R1 and R2 zoning districts until September 15th of 2027. After September 15th of 2027, short-term rentals are not permitted in the R1 or R2 zoning districts, and all short-term rentals in those districts must be discontinued. That's all I have.
Thank you, Michael. All right. The next item will be public comment, and I will take a short break because they are bringing in additional chairs. As soon as they're installed, then we will start the public comments. If y'all want to bring some up front, you can too. For these folks. Michael, put them in the front here, please. Thank you. I think that's about it. Okay, put them right here. Okay, Lester, is that it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
We have the new chairs in place. If anyone wants to come forward and take a seat, you're welcome to do so. All right, our first speaker tonight will be Kathy Henson.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Henson, president of the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition, here tonight to speak in support of the proposed amendment to prohibit all short-term rentals in our R1 and R2 residential neighborhoods. The Highlands Neighborhood Coalition is a group of year-round, part-time, and seasonal residents who share a love of the town of Highlands and want to preserve and protect our traditional residential neighborhoods. We are simply homeowners who live in our homes, enjoying the peace and quiet of our unique mountain community. We found each other quite randomly and accidentally when it was becoming clear that a cancer was creeping into our neighborhoods and violating what we all believe to be the long-standing zoning laws that prohibited all commercial activity in our single-family residential neighborhoods. It took us a while to understand this was exactly the strategy that the big commercial interest intended. Sneak in, take advantage of what some have argued to be ambiguous zoning language, for example, using the term overnight accommodations instead of short-term rentals, and hoping that by the time the neighbors and local officials woke up, the cancer would have taken hold and be impossible to root out. In 2020, we created the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition to find a cure for this cancer. After years of study and research and the past 2 years of living with the experiment of some can but most can't, we have concluded that STRs are uniquely destructive to residential neighborhoods and their total eradication is the only possible cure. Make no mistake about who is behind short-term rentals. Realtors, real estate investors, and companies like VRBO and Airbnb, a $73 billion corporation that spends millions of dollars a year lobbying state legislators and local government officials like you. Their most recent lobbying strategy, as written about in the Wall Street Journal, is to hide behind local STR owners, even though most STR owners are really out-of-town investors operating remote assets. Do not be fooled. In its 2020 IPO, Airbnb identified its two biggest challenges. Number one, fighting unfavorable local zoning laws, and number two, managing the neighbors. So tonight, I'm here to ask you to do your part. pass this amendment and enact a zoning law that Airbnb and its allies will find unfavorable. And let me do my part by introducing the neighbors who are here tonight to support removing short-term rentals from our R1 and R2 residential neighborhoods. Mr. Mayor, in the interest of time, we asked our supporters if they could not be here tonight to submit their comments in writing, and I believe to date you've received 110. And if they could come but didn't want to speak, that their support would be recognized if they simply raised their hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Tom Coley.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commission. I'm here tonight to ask that you pass the suggested amendment to eliminate, amortize out short-term rental in R1 and R2 neighborhoods. I would also ask that I be able to delegate my time to Charlie Nabum, who's coming up next. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no delegation of time, though. It's all 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Charlie Nalbone. I am here on behalf of the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition to provide detailed comments on amortization, as was promised by HNC Attorney Mac McCarley at the August Town Board meeting. He is unable to attend tonight. Amortization is settled law in North Carolina and may be used by you to amortize short-term rentals out of the R1 and R2 single-family zones. Amortization has been considered by the appellate courts of North Carolina 6 times and upheld each time. The legal rule was established by State v. Joyner, a 1974 state Supreme Court case which allowed Winston-Salem to amortize a construction debris salvage yard use over a 3-year period. After losing at the North Carolina Supreme Court, the defendants appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that appeal was dismissed. Since then, the Court of Appeals has applied the law of State v. Joyner consistently in 5 cases. Cumberland County versus Eastern Federal Corporation, the court upheld a 3-year amortization period, removing 2 non-conforming signs that exceeded the size limitation. They dismissed a First Amendment claim, and they ruled that the ordinance could be lawfully based on aesthetic concerns. In Gibbons v. Nags Head, the court upheld a 5.5-year amortization period, removing non-conforming billboards, and specifically upheld the amortization period for removal as reasonable. In Goodman Toyota versus Raleigh, the court upheld the reasonableness of a 90-day amortization period prohibiting wind-blown signs. In Summey Outdoor Advertising versus Henderson County, the court upheld a 5-year amortization period, removing non-conforming off-premise signs. And importantly, the court held that the ordinance did not constitute a taking of private property because it still allowed a reasonable use of the property and employed a reasonable amortization period before removal. And in Manor versus Onslow County, the court upheld a 2-year amortization period on the location of a sexually oriented business. Here's the most important thing about each of these 5 Court of Appeals cases. The state Supreme Court refused to review the rulings in any of them. They were petitioned to do so and refused all 5 times, allowing the Court of Appeals decisions to stand as good and valid law in North Carolina. The second thing I want to point out is that in the cases with lengthy amortization periods, the ordinances required the structures that were in violation to be removed, in addition to the cessation of the use. In the 2-year amortization of the location of sexually oriented businesses, the structures weren't removed, just the use. That is the case in your amortization proposal too. No single family structure is to be removed. The owners of those structures will have 3 years to recoup their investment, and they may still make lawful use of the structure as a long-term rental. They may sell it, or they may actually live in it. No property is taken from them, just one use is amortized and prohibited at a date certain in the future.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Lila Howland.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Lila Howland, and I'm a longtime resident of Highlands and a registered voter. I would like to remind the commissioners that the voters in the last two municipal elections overwhelmingly supported the candidates who publicly stated their positions on short-term rentals, which was to eliminate them in residential neighborhoods, R1 and R2. In 2021, in a record turnout, the voters elected Commissioners Amy Patterson and Eric Pearson, whose positions were clearly in favor of removing short-term rentals from R1 and R2. Again, in 2023, the voters elected Commissioners Brian Steeler and Buzz Dotson, who maintained short-term rentals had no place in R1 and R2. Our residential neighborhoods are being threatened by an invasion of many hotels that host anywhere from 4 to 12 different strangers any and every night or weekend. If we want to remain a town where people actually live, we must protect our neighborhoods. All of us know that the heart of this community is the committed residents who support the institutions and nonprofits that give Highlands its character. Tourism is but one driver of the local economy. It does not define Highlands. Tourism does not make it the special, unique place that we call home. Community makes Highlands special. Commissioners, the voters have spoken not once, but twice. I implore you to support amortization and remove short-term rentals from our R1 and R2 residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Holly Henry. Holly Henry.
Okay, so I'm probably not, I own Galax Rentals here in Highlands, and I'm not too great at public speaking. Kind of what I do just got called cancer. I can tell you in my case, it's a little bit different. I have 12 properties in the affected zones. They're all owned by individual homeowners who aren't doing this for a way to get rich quick. It helps offset some of the cost of owning their home here in Highlands. I'm very careful with each and every property that I manage. I monitor the garbage. I take care of the house. I take care of the guests. I set rules and guidelines for them, and I look after them. And I think that a major problem that is happening here in Highlands is that there's poor management or no management at all. So if we could make more rules, hold people accountable, stop using the police department as a way to do the job that property management and homeowners should be doing. And basically have somebody to hold accountable. I'm glad to stand up and be that person. I'm glad to give my phone number to whoever. I stop and I pick up other people's trash off the road to keep everybody from getting in trouble. This is really important to me. It's my family business. I have dragged my whole family into doing this. And when you do it right, it consumes 100% of your life. And we all take care of it. My entire family, my friends, everybody that I know, the first thing I do when I look at them is try to find a way they can help me in my business. I mean, I look for their unique talents and what it can do to make these things better. I'm not a cancer. I love Highlands. I want other people to see Highlands. I talk to these people. Some of them are jerks, but some of them are very nice. And they want to see, they see here for the first time. They see our foliage. They see the waterfalls. They're in amazement. It's like looking at a child. I love the tourists. And it's not all about money for me, because I tell you, I could go to another job and make a whole lot more money and give a whole lot less of my life. I love that aspect of it. And I think with some control and some rules and some accountability and letting people know who managed the property, who owns the property, that a lot of these things could be alleviated. I know that I probably have not made any difference at all, but for my homeowners who I all love and they're my good friends, for my guests, for my family, I had to at least say that a lot of this might be bad for the town, but I'm trying to be good for the town.
Thanks, all.
Thanks.
All right, our next speaker will be Lawana Bell.
So my sister and I purchased our first Highlands cabin 20 years ago. Our realtor worked with us to find a rental we could afford. We found one. Impossible to qualify except rental income would make the numbers work. It wasn't easy. Loans from our 401ks made it happen. I know, bad idea, but we did it based on the town's potential and the zoning laws allowing short-term rentals. We had to sacrifice and scrimp to pay bills and make improvements, but for our golden years, we knew it would be worth it. If we had been told we weren't welcome here, we would have looked for another town to plant roots. Sad, since we both love Highlands. Over the years, we bought 2 more small houses. Again, both overpriced, but doable with the prospect of vacation rental income. Regardless of the difficulties, owning 3 Highlands properties is an amazing accomplishment for us, as we come from very limited means. I did put down roots, and my golden years are fast approaching. I also own 3 businesses on Main Street, a Main Street commercial property. I made Highlands my permanent residence. I pay Town of Highlands bills, but my home that I live in is exactly 300 feet outside the city limit. So I'm not allowed to vote on any of these issues that control my destiny. A distressing reality for sure. 14 years ago, we bought our 3rd home, a foreclosure in disrepair. We really turned that one around. We've hosted wonderful people over the years, doctors, executives, teachers, writers. Many return yearly. Some have become lifelong friends. Dozens have moved to Highlands since. Overall, terrific folks who want to experience Highlands and whom you would be lucky to have as your neighbor. Now, much of Highlands' seasonal traffic comes from country club members who spend most of the time at the club. Got day workers, day trippers come to town, but they know Highlands is expensive. Old Edwards clients spend much of their time and budget on the room, the spa, and the wedding. Once the weather is perfect enough, the elite second homeowners arrive. Many of you join the cabal. They pop up for just a few months and then they leave. November comes, the clubs close, the day trippers leave. The business district is left then supported by a small number of residents the 6 months out of the year. We need short-term renters. They support Main Street. They create stability in the housing market. Among the reasons your homes have skyrocketed in value is the irritating VRBO rental next door has economics in its favor, driving up values. As real estate buyers look for options beyond the town's jurisdiction, property values will fall, and look out for the teardowns, the mega mansions coming next. Fewer vacationers mean less prosperity for everyone in Highlands. You can choose to support the STR rights and business owners who have made this a viable year-round town, paying for town infrastructure along the way, or vote to reverse the prosperity and shut down this town for a few spoiled who want to maintain this mountain all to themselves.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Slocum Howland.
My name is Slocum Howland. I want to thank the town commissioners for their willingness to serve our town, its residents, and our visitors. Opinions are easy. Decisions are hard. Somebody smart said that. I live at 223 Sagey Drive within the town limits of Highlands in zone R1, which is purely residential. I've been a full-time resident for the past 22 years. I vote in each election. My wife and I bought our lot on Sagey Drive in 1998, built our house, and moved full-time to Highlands in 2002. Prior to the purchase of our lot in Highlands, we considered both Cashers and Highlands, but specifically chose Highlands because of the town's zoning regulations. The town ordinance stated that our lot was in zone R1, residential with no commercial activity allowed. That's the ordinance when we bought our lot in 1998. We checked into it, our attorney checked into it, that was the law. We moved to a neighborhood and did not expect short-term rentals or any other commercial business in our R1 zone. I want our neighborhood to remain a residential neighborhood. I am not opposed to short-term rental activity in Highlands, but do not think it should be allowed in zone R1. I strongly support amortization. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's not going to go in golf digest.
Definitely.
Okay, our next speaker will be Nancy Nichols.
I'm in a unique position here because I have no dog in this hunt. I'm not a realtor or a construction worker. I don't have a home in any of the districts that allow short-term rentals. I just have a family that's been here as a summer visitor, but a 6-month visitor for 50 years and been involved in about every charity in this town. I was just at the Bascom at something and somebody told me, they said, this is the most wonderful place in the nation to be in need because our charities are so wonderful here. But I think they're wonderful because our residents and our longer term residents support all these charities. Now, if I go to a town or a city and I stay in a hotel or I'm in a VRBO, I don't write a check to the Bascom. I don't write a check to the hospital. I don't support, I don't go out and work. It's wonderful to have a Dahlia Festival for all the visitors, but those people are not long-term supporters of the History Center like I am. And I think that's the crux here. We are going to lose the basis for the giving in this community if you allow more and more people to be short-term rentals here, because they will not give. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Jeannie Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the town board. Right off, I am against amortization of the UDO. Tonight, you will hear from all sides of the subject of short-term rentals and why or why not they should be allowed. The reason I said all sides instead of both sides is because just like Highlands is a true gem and has many facets that contribute to its worth, this debate is also multifaceted. It's not just a property owner who doesn't like seeing a different car in the next door neighbor's driveway. It's not just the person who's getting their way who calls a restaurant to get a reservation and find they can't because an evil person like a tourist visitor or, God forbid, a short-term renter has taken their place in line. It's not just the person who has said, okay, admit it, at least thought it. I'm glad I found Highlands when I did, and now we have, let's throw up the gates. It's not just the restaurant owner and store owners who are worried if there are no short-term rentals, they'll need to cut back on employees, especially in the shoulder seasons. It's not just the restaurant workers or store employees who fear they'll be the ones who are let go. It's also not just about the house cleaners, plumbers, landscapers, etc., who are worried about less work. It's not just about the homeowner who bought a home to retire here someday, but are trying to rent it out to help pay some of the expenses. It's all of these and more. It's a multifaceted problem. I used to ask my mother-in-law, Isabel Chambers, what would your dad say about all the changes here in Highlands over the years? And she'd shrug her shoulders and say, change is going to happen no matter where you live. Her father was Tudor Hall, and his parents opened up a summer resort back in 1896, the Hall House. And no, they didn't have short-term rentals, mainly because it took 2 days just to get up the mountain. It really doesn't matter if people who live here have been here all of their lives or they just closed on a property last week. They are all due respect and the enjoyment of their property rights. In closing, I want to pass along a quote from a born and raised in Highlands local man. We were talking about the short-term rental dilemma, and he said, you know, it's sort of like, I don't mind coming in here and being your neighbor, but I don't want you coming in here being my neighbor. Think about that statement as you make your decision in the next couple of weeks. Highlands is a gem, but you need to consider all of the facts as well as all the facets. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Dino Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board. I'll keep my remarks brief. I live at 366 Dog Mountain Road. I've been coming to Highlands for 25 years since I was in college and just grew to love it immediately to the point where I'm now married, 3 kids, got engaged at the top of Whiteside Mountain about 14 years ago. And like everyone else at this podium, I love and respect this community just as much as they do. And finally, I got to live my dream and buy a house here in Highlands in 2021. And through that process, I got to hire local trades and contribute to the marketplace here in Highlands. And it also allows me and my family to spend more time here. And my kids participate in nature camp every summer. We try to get here every 4th of July and as many times throughout the year. And, when we're here, we're helping support those businesses. This has been such a divisive issue that it pains me to say that we come to Highlands, to breathe the air and to live more freely. But when you come here and you feel the divisiveness and you engage in conflict with your neighbors, I just got to say it's unfortunate. It's not the kind of neighbors that we are. And the renters, the folks we've had there, I think someone said it earlier, if you've got the right property management and you mean well and want to do the right thing as the homeowner, you're not going to have the issues. You're not going to feel that, a change in who your neighbor is for the week or the month. I could tell you I've probably spent $5 on a furniture marker just to do some touch up on a piece of furniture. And that's the extent of what my renters have done to my home in the last 2 years. I think they've been good neighbors. And I just ask, that you not support this amendment. I think, Highlands is a special place and, the short-term rentals is an important part of that process. So thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Connor Blackwood.
Thanks for your time, Mayor, Commissioners, appreciate it. As he said, my name is Connor. I'm not from Enron or supporting Big Pharma. I'm a dad. I have a wife. She's not here. She's looking after our kids. Both of them are studying tonight. They're in local colleges. We bought property here that we would like to keep, that I intend to be at. I also served 23 years in the military. And I'd like to bring everybody off of the specifics of STR or not STR and think about what you're doing to our rights. Besides whatever the issue is, I fought 23 years for all of your freedom and all of your freedom. I went to the UAE. In the UAE, they have alcohol restrictions. In Germany, you don't even get a full-size trash can.
Do you mind?
In Germany, you don't even get a full-size trash can. In Denmark, the cars have to be 20 years old or over. Going past the line of starting to restrict freedom comes with consequences. I didn't serve and help our nation's freedom and then come here to have that revoked. I would like to be able to use that freedom. We all need to be careful about what we restrict and the freedom of what we have to do with our personal property. We need to be responsible for it, and we need to be able to use it. Freedom requires responsibility. I'm a very responsible renter. I'm up here more often than I only rent occasionally, but I appreciate the time and the energy to be able to do that. I would ask that you not support this amendment and allow us the freedom and be very careful removing rights from those of us that live and work in Highlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. All right. The next speaker will be Frida Bennett.
I bet y'all are so tired of seeing me. You run from me. But I appreciate each one of you, Buzz, Dr. Amy, Eric.
We can't hear you, Frida.
Please
Okay.
speak into
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, I've said so much in previous meetings. And so what I want to do is just say tonight, whatever you decide, you've got this decision and you are amazing to have accepted that and to represent our community because you see it. Everybody in this audience sees what short-term rentals are doing to our town. It's nothing that they're not seeing. There's nothing more I can say. You want it to work. It is unworkable. Sometimes you have a condition, you can managing it well. Other times, those conditions just cannot be managed. You can go try to walk around our mountain now. I think as some of you pointed out, we have about 50 rentals, short-term rentals. On top of my mountain, there are 33 houses, and there are 3 permanent renters, one of whom is permanent owners, one of whom is trying to sell. So you have about 120 some houses on our mountain. And out of those 120, you'll find about 25 of us who are trying to make this work. And it's unworkable. If one short term goes out, another short term goes out. It's not like they're all doing the same thing at the whole time. I can't fix it. The owner can't fix it. I wish management could fix it. I know the police can't fix it because it's not their job. But I just want to make one final note. I hear a lot about investors, and I don't hear that I'm an investor. And I am an investor in this town of Highlands. I have put tons of money into keeping this home that I built 52 years ago. That's been very hard for all of these people who have bought separate homes. This was my retirement plan. I don't know, aggravation, no. When you have a chronic illness, you learn to live with it. But it doesn't mean that if it were brought on you by somebody else that you have to. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do for this town. You are immensely appreciated. And my final thought, if short-term renters just can't go, and your association with them may not be as mine is. To me, it's all of them because I walk 12 hours a day on my same mountain, or 10 hours or 8 hours. But if you can't terminate them, then let everybody have a short-term rental and let the 20 people who are left on my mountain just sell and go, because that's where we are. But thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Lee Eddy.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight, and appreciate all the hard work that you put in this situation that's really hopefully not tearing this town apart. My name is Lee Eddy, and our home has been a cherished part of my family for 4 generations, spanning almost 60 years. Originally, it was my grandmother's home. The family later named the home Many Blessings in honor of her. It has served as a gathering place for decades, filled with family celebrations, including the rehearsal dinner for my firstborn's wedding, and many Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations. Today, the home is now also partially owned by my son, continuing our family's deep connection to this very special place. Recently, natural causes threatened the foundation of the house, bringing it dangerously close to falling off the mountain. Our family made the decision to invest nearly $1 million in critical renovations to preserve the home and its history for future generations. While we treasure this home, we do not live in the Highlands permanently. In order to maintain the property and keep it in our family, we rely on short-term rental income and have for nearly 20 years. Eliminating short-term rentals would prevent us from using the home as we have legally used it since before most people have even heard of VRBO. It would also force us to sell the home, as we would no longer be able to sustain the cost of its upkeep. This income is essential not only for maintaining the property, but for preserving our family's legacy. Renting to short-term travelers allows us to honor the home's history while ensuring its future. I would ask that you please give special consideration to those of us who have a long-term vested interest in Highlands. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Our next speaker will be Jennifer Huff.
Mr. Mayor and Town Commissioners, I am in favor of short-term rentals, property rights, and I strongly am against amortization. It should be surprising to me that after the town attorney advised against amortization, the mayor no longer supports the action, your planning board unanimously voted against it, numerous STR owners have pleaded not to move forward, and various business owners have come out against it. It should surprise us, but it doesn't surprise me at all. We are very used to being ignored and vilified. I know short-term rental owners are blamed for lack of affordable housing, even though that's an issue that many cities and towns across the U.S. grapple with. It's a far more difficult issue and complicated than just STRs. We're told repeatedly that guests cause so many problems, yet each time we've reached out for complaint stats, there's been almost no difference in the types and the number of complaints between locals and STR guests. I also find it curious with the number of cell phones today. Everybody has one. We have never seen any evidence of all the problems in Highlands. Finally, we often hear that you no longer know your neighbors because they're all strangers. What they are just good people who are trying to enjoy the area, and they have every right to visit. Most people are very good, they are courteous, and they are kind. I'm originally from a small town in Michigan, and unfortunately, I witnessed the same type of localism I see here. It's okay to be from somewhere, to enjoy your way of life, your customs, your heritage, but you do not own Highlands. This is a town where tourists who become guests in STRs should be welcomed and appreciated for allowing Highlands to thrive. If you've seen little towns across this nation close down, it's not a good sight. And I know some of you think you want that, but trust me, when you see it, you're not going to want it. They should be welcomed, they should be appreciated, and everybody has the right to travel and see this beautiful country, including Highlands. Locals and tourists can coexist, we can get along. We just need to try a little harder. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is David B.
Good evening, and thank you for taking the time. My name is David B. I'm the owner of Highlands Vacation Rentals. Obviously, I have a vested interest in your decision. And I want to speak to just one thing, and that's what I've heard several times tonight, and that's the word commercial. And I just want to state that the North Carolina Vacation Rental Act, General Statute 42A, clearly states that a short-term vacation rental is not a commercial enterprise. That's all.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker will be Derek Allen.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and town and residents that came out for this important issue. My name is Derek Allen. I'm an attorney at Allen, Stall & Kilbourne out of Asheville. I've been doing land use and zoning work all over this state for more than 25 years, and this issue comes up from time to time. And the issue I'm talking about is amortization. There are only 3 things that have been amortized successfully in this state and held up by the Court of Appeals, and that is a salvage yard, a couple of sign cases, and a strip club. That's it. The other ones don't make it to the appellate courts. That's because the trial courts say that's not how it's going to work. And that's because it's an extremely difficult thing to do under the law of this state. One thing I did want to make clear is I don't represent Airbnb. I don't represent VRBO. I represent the individual owners of properties that you've heard tonight and that are here tonight in droves. This is an important issue to them, their properties, their legacies, and their families. In 2021, without much warning, this town decided that it was going to proactively ban short-term rentals. We sent a letter, we ended up filing a lawsuit, and after consulting with your attorneys, the town said, okay, you're right, we're going to withdraw that. 2022 comes around, and again, Short-term rentals are banned. We tell the town that you've not done it correctly, and they back off. A third time it happens. The lawsuit's still out there from 2021, and we end up deciding that going forward, as long as it's proactively looking going forward, that we'll let it sit as a group, as long as it didn't try to retroactively amortize and get rid of short-term rentals that were already out there and existing. And that lawsuit still stands, and the stay ends on October 1. And that's where we're going to be on that. In terms of the amortization piece, there are 500 municipalities and 100 counties. Not one of those has tackled what is before you today. We would ask that you vote that down. It's a bad idea. It's bad law. It's not going to work in North Carolina, and it's going to only add to the legal problems that are already out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I move forward, I had a name that was scratched through. I want to make sure we don't miss anyone. Christy Favelli. Okay.
That's not allowed.
Okay. The next speaker would be Laura Puckett.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I just want to say that I am strongly opposed to this. I actually was opposed to the grandfathering. In the first place, we came to town and invested quite a bit of money in a vacation rental that was an eyesore right in the middle of town. Yes, actually, we built a house in town first and lived here for a while and decided to invest in a property that was a large eyesore in the middle of town across from the Performing Arts Center. We poured a ton of money into it. It was going to be our retirement income. And all of this lawsuit starts coming up. You passed the grandfathering clause. We finished the property up, and we just decided to sell basically at a loss of the investment that we had, at a loss of the income that we had expected. And I don't really think it's fair. And I honestly think that you should consider all these people that rely on this income, the businesses, the chambers, David, Galax, who just came up. I mean, there's so many people here. And I also see the people sitting here opposing it who bought their homes fully realizing that vacation rentals were legal and they could have bought in an HOA, which there's a lot of HOA people here opposing it, which they don't even allow vacation rentals. So I don't understand that one at all. But I hope that you make the right decision. There's so much better use of our taxpayer dollars in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alice Nels.
Well, personally, I don't think there's really
Please speak
anything left
into the
to be.
microphone.
I don't think there's real anything to be left to be said on either side of this issue. It seems to me everything has been said by all sides to the point of almost a collective delirium. So what I'm here to say is this, is that I hope you all, commissioners, are able to stand by the courage of your convictions. I hope you won't let the threat of a lawsuit weaken your courage, nor tempt you, nor lead you to take the easy way out and to abandon those convictions. And the same goes for some of the personal insults that I think you have been targeted to some of you all. I hope that they don't intimidate you in any way. The threat of a lawsuit is no small thing and is not to be taken lightly. That goes without saying. But there comes a time when we have to stand firm, whether as individuals or as a group, and stand up for our beliefs and not allow threats of any kind to intimidate us. It takes courage to do this. And besides, I know you all realize that no matter what you do or what you decide, you can't win. You are damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Either way, a lot of people are going to be seriously PO'd at all of you all. So you just as well go with your gut and do what you've wanted to do all along. I hope you all are able to do this, and I also hope you know that that you don't stand alone, that a lot of people stand with you. And I say good luck and thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is James Worrell.
Hello, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you very much for holding this meeting. Someone said before, we've been here a few times. We've been through this a bit. And I'm for removing the STR use in our single-family neighborhoods. Those uses and businesses do not belong in neighborhoods, only residents. You can see the overwhelming support for removing them. So I'd encourage you to please move urgently, not only the overwhelming written support that you're seeing in the packets that are coming out, but in the elections, in this room. Out of respect for your time, I was going to stop there, but there've been some things said that I feel like I just need to make a couple of comments about. These things have always been illegal. This concept that, oh, well, they're legal, don't take them away. They've never been legal. Overnight accommodations were not legal in R1. They aren't legal now. They've been designated as a non-conforming use. Mr. Holland, has his opinions on amortization. That's just a method. But the fact of the matter is, these things were not here 20, 30, 40 years ago. They can say it as many times as they want. You couldn't rent a whole house for one night 60 years ago. You couldn't do it. There have been vacation rentals and there have been people staying here for months and months at a time. And those people are welcomed. Long-term rentals are welcomed in our town. The property rights that are being trampled upon are the residents' property rights. We talk about this a lot. We are the ones who have our lives disrupted by them. The North Carolina General Assembly states very clearly in Article 7, Chapter 42, residents of this state have the right to the peaceful, safe, and quiet enjoyment of their homes. We don't have that. We really encourage you to do the right thing. I agree with the previous speaker. Lawsuits come, lawsuits go, but you've got to vote based on your conviction and conscience. I'd really appreciate it if you do that and move ahead urgently on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Jim Murphy.
Hey there, my name is Jim Murphy. I had no intention of being here and, it somewhat makes me uncomfortable, but I want to share with you my experience. I bought a house with my partner at 836 Dog Mountain Road about 10 months ago. We were drawn to Highlands by, I think, the same thing that everybody's talking about, natural beauty, climate, super nice people, dog friendly, and it was a small town. No airports, no 4-lane roads. I never thought this place would blow up. But, from a development perspective, maybe this room will blow up. But, my experience with STR, and I find that my neighbor is next door. I've never met her. She spoke before. But it's been a nightmare living beside an STR. It started with garbage, either in an open dumpster, thrown in garbage cans that aren't bear-proof garbage cans that are taken away, and just garbage bags out there. I've spent a lot of time picking up garbage that's not my own. I really now, and it's not just a nuisance, it's concerning because the bears drag the garbage right to my yard, and then I go in my kitchen and a bear is trying to open the door. I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe for my 3 dogs, and it's been a real issue. So I didn't know about this meeting. I didn't plan on being here until Saturday when I drive up to my house, and the house next door that it's an STR has a full banner on it about a bachelorette party. If you look at the listing, it's marketed as an event facility. It attracts 14 people, 5 cars. I love bachelorettes and I'm all about bachelorette parties, but in commercial settings. They come up, they're honking the horn. It seems like there's dozens of people on the deck. And we all have our rights, but I have a right to sit in my house that I thought was a house without it being beside a commercial facility. Then I go for a walk and you smell septic because there's so many people there and it's just one issue after another and there's never been anybody I could deal with it. I don't want to deal with this. I wish it wasn't the issue, but we're on a 1-lane road. This is a cul-de-sac. It doesn't support all these extra cars and people. You just can't get up there. If all 5 STRs on our road, brought 14 people and 5 cars, then that's 70 more people and 25 more cars. So if we all decided to do STR, then that's 304 people and an extra 130 cars. Other people will talk about other cities where STRs work. I think they have 4-lane roads. I think they have sidewalks. They have infrastructure, and they don't rely on septic, and they don't have bears that are dangerous. So I really urge you to take this into consideration and end short-term rentals.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Our next speaker is Greg Thompson.
Good evening. So the gentleman I'm following this gentleman that has one instance, and he's wanting to put that as a whole and put everybody in the same boat. But I'm here to speak on property rights. Every property owner has a property line, a God-given property line, and a ban on STRs is crossing a boundary. Every property owner has a right to put a sign on his property line that says no trespassing. A ban on STRs is a trespass. It's a violation of property rights. Every property owner has an opportunity and the right to use their property to create an income and generate funds. A right to come in and tell a person what they can and cannot do to their property is a violation of property rights. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Kevin Gabbard.
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing really, you've heard me for 2 years, so.
Okay.
I appreciate your time. Everybody else has made valid points on both.
Okay. Next speaker, Jerry Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. I spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out what I want to say in 3 minutes. It's really hard. As many of you know, I like to talk. I have lots of ideas. So I'll try to nail it the best that I can. I own a short-term rental. I've had 2. I recently sold one. It was grandfathered. That person paid good money for that short-term rental, and I hope they can use it and it's not taken away. Otherwise, they made a really bad investment. I have 3 minutes to speak tonight. It took me 6 months to remodel my house on Billy Cabin Road. Nobody else wanted that house. I got it for a good price, worked on it, knew I could use it for short-term rental because there was no law against it. We knew. You might think there was a law against it, but if you read the UDO before it was changed, maybe you had an argument. The UDO after that, no more argument. It was legal. It was not included in that, or else we wouldn't be here tonight. So I think the commission needs to ask themselves 3 questions. Is it legal? Is it logical? And does amortization really solve this alleged problem that I keep hearing? So if you pass this, will the courts approve? Ask yourself that. Otherwise, you're going to spend $500,000 plus battling the courts, be the first municipality in the state of North Carolina to ban short-term rentals completely. Are you exceeding your authority? You have a lot of authority. You can do this, but then it has to go through the courts. We trust you with that authority. I mean, I don't vote. I don't live in the town of Highlands, never have, own property here. But we trust you with that authority. I know you're good people. I know all of you very well. That's a lot of authority. It's a lot of power to have. Please use it responsibly. Laws should not be passed to benefit the will of a few or the will of this person because they don't like it. We got to look at the big picture. And I hope that you can ultimately do that. It's all speculation what the courts are going to rule. Homes are not billboards. There's so many legal arguments. We looked at Wilmington. We broke it down. I know I researched it and wrote about it. This is a whole different issue. It's a use. It's a home. I know there's short-term rentals, but there's a lot of legal implications to this. Please think about this. Please. Is it logical? Is there legitimate data to show harm caused by STRs? If so, is that data significant enough to take away my rights as a property owner? I mean, is there any? I have seen no real data. 15 complaints, maybe 10 of those are short-term rentals. Traffic counts. I haven't seen any of that done. Do we know who's really visiting? Have we gone out there and done surveys? Are you a short-term rental? I don't know. Equal valuation? Should everybody be equal? If I have a short-term rental, it's worth more than your house next door. Should we be valued equally? That sounds like socialism to me. What problem are you trying to solve? I haven't heard, I mean, I've heard anecdotal evidence, but I haven't heard like a problem throughout the entire community. And does amateurization solve the alleged problem? Just think of this. Highlands has been found. People will keep coming here. Mayor, in your own writings recently with climate tourism, this is going to be a busy place. You're going to push short-term rentals just outside of town. You're going to have significant traffic impacts coming into town. The infrastructure is going to be strained. It's not going to solve any problems. Your current ordinance does. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker, Pat Allen.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for at least opening this up that we can express ourselves. This is totally about people's rights and the economy of downtown Highlands. And I don't think there has been an economic study done by y'all. I know that Richard Delaney, CEO of Old Edwards, did one when all of this came up a couple of years ago, stating that the downtown would lose over $100 million a year if you do away with short-term rentals. The economy of these people, these merchants, Bryson's grocery store, if you think they won't be affected, you're wrong. I don't understand. I'm like Jerry, who just spoke. The hysteria. If we had people fighting and rolling in the streets that are short-term rentals, okay. But what is really happening? You've got some trash, you've got, and I'll go along with the guy with the bachelorette. Absolutely, that's wrong. Somebody, and I know Sissy can take care of that, the homeowner, it should go back to the homeowner. And you either start fining them over and over and over, you shut them down. That I don't have an issue with, taking away their rental rights. But for those who have spoken, who have cried that this has been in their family, they need this income. And you look at the rental companies here, we have at least 3, and you're willing to take away their livelihood because you've got a few disgruntled people in neighborhoods. That's wrong. You shut them down. And they've done this for over 40 years, the Chambers Agency. They are good, honest people. And to take away their livelihood because you have a few rowdy people, that's just totally wrong. And I want to reiterate that I was in a meeting with the same thing years ago, and Josh was asked specifically by the attorney at that time, are short-term rentals considered commercial? And he said no. And that has been mentioned again. So if you want to do away with short-term rentals, and this has not been brought up, 2 things. One of them, we have 181 short-term rentals out of 2,200 homes. So those are the people you will be affecting. That is a small percentage. The other thing is, do away with short-term rentals. We're wide open for a hotel. In fact, I dealt and spoke with the mayor years ago. We had a buyer who wanted to do one. We could have a Motel 6 because we're already approved for that. So that's your choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Pam Nellis.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for letting me talk. I kept hoping over the last 2 years we would all just compromise and come together. But I'm just going to reiterate, Pam Nellis, Landmark Realty Group, and I live in Highlands in Shelby Place. Our Plateau real estate suffered greatly with the 2009 recession.
There you go.
Our Plateau real estate suffered greatly with the 2009 recession, which lasted for 10 years. Many of our homes had deteriorated from lack of maintenance. No new construction was being built. Foreclosures were everywhere, on every street. New owners invested in these homes throughout our plateau and brought them back to life. For years, the town would state that in R1 and restrictions were not enforced. I would call and ask. R2 was not even an issue until this board made a sweeping decision to include R2 in the short-term rental ban. I live in the middle of a row of 4 townhomes that are in R3. One is an STR. In 2+ years, there have only been a couple of times an issue came up. Someone took my parking place, and I called the owner. We all have his number. It was taken care of immediately. Know your neighbors. A true grandfathered in rights, I Googled it today, refers to permissions or exceptions that allow an existing property owner to maintain existing conditions or uses of a property even after zoning laws or regulations have been implemented. This goes with the land into perpetuity. According to our previous town meetings, I've heard all kinds of numbers for STRs, but I know they're fewer than 300. These current owners have agreed that if their home has not been rented for 1 year and 1 day, they'll lose their ability to rent as an STR forever. That's not a term we have used in real estate. I've been in this business 45 years. This isn't a grandfathering by these folks. It's a compromise that they're willing to do, that we can, through attrition, keep the numbers going down. They'll never go back up. I'm against amortization and spending our money. It's my money. I live in town. And I seem to be funding, I'm paying for it whatever direction we go. I just want something fair. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Our next speaker will be Tracy Fitzsimmons.
Hi, my husband and I have owned a rental in Highlands for the last 7 years. We've had wonderful guests and many have returned to stay with us. We live in the area, we love the area, and we want nothing more than for it to continue to thrive. We were so upset to see that this had yet again become an issue, but felt better after attending the planning board meeting in July. As you know, the board members voted unanimously in favor of not moving forward. The town attorney attending the meeting via Zoom also advised against moving forward. One question answered by one of the board members was regarding the number of nuisance calls. The number to date was 15, not all from short-term rentals. Either way, a very small number. Kudos to our wonderful community we all know and love. Another board member mentioned that he had been coming to Highlands for decades with his family, and they always rented short-term. The board also mentioned that many of the short-term rentals have since sold, and many of those are no longer being used as rentals. Incredibly sad for your local businesses, but nonetheless addressing the overall number of rentals in R1 and R2. I would like to mention one thing that I've noticed since living up here full-time. Around May each year, landscapers descend on our area to make sure that everything looks pristine when the part-timers arrive. I just want to make note that rental owners keep their properties up year-round. I've also noticed that there seem to be many homes in the area that are in disrepair or an eyesore. This doesn't happen with short-term rentals. We are former small business owners ourselves and can't imagine how concerned your business owners and their employees must be, especially since Highlands has always allowed short-term rentals. I understand that your local business owners have no vote in any of this. It seems incredibly unfair to take in hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax revenue from each of them each year, yet they have no voice. It is crazy to think that there could be taxation without representation in this day and time. I would also like to address the length of stay and behavior of guests. Lengthening the required stay duration via new regulation will not turn a misbehaving guest into a well-behaving guest. Stay duration and guest behavior are not correlated. We believe this is clearly a violation of our property rights, given there were no restrictions when we purchased our property. You could have just told us no. But we will have to let the courts decide should you decide to move forward. The Wilmington case cost its taxpayers more than $500,000. I do not understand why Highlands would want to risk its taxpayers so much money, especially given such legal precedent. In closing, I would love to know how many of you that are against short-term rentals found Highlands by indeed staying in a short-term rental. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Patrick Gleason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Board. I'm Pat Gleason. My wife Bee's here with me tonight. We're residents of Mirror Lake, and our home is surrounded by 4 short-term rentals. Honestly, we love every one of them. I meet the people as they walk by. We talk. Their dogs play with our dog. They stop by for cocktails. They ask me about restaurants and shops. We become temporary neighbors and friends, and some of them truly end up working with Bee and I to find a second home here in Highlands. As we move closer to Christmas, and if you'll indulge me, I'd like to take a minute and talk about the ghost of STR's past, the ghost of STR's present, and the ghost of STR's future. The ghost of STR's past is a prolonged era before the town announced its plan to ban back in 21. I'm proud to call myself one of the ghosts of STR past. Bee and I rented homes here for over 20 years. More than half of those rentals were close to town or in Mirror Lake. Renting here made us fall in love with the town. We even tried Cashers, but we ended up in Highlands. We both held corporate jobs in Atlanta. We looked at each other one night and said, some chapter of our lives, we've got to live in Highlands. The ghost of STR past meant we could find an affordable place to rent, and that cottage and cabin owners became friends of ours. They're still friends of ours when we have meaningful relationships with the owners of these cottages. Enter the ghost of STR present. The ghost of STR present decided to cap the number of rentals in residential zones 2 years ago and then reserved options for amortization. Well, it's working. You already have amortization. Bee and I have sold 9 rental properties since the ban 2 years ago in the affected zones, and 3 of those have discontinued renting. So like it or not, amortization is already here. And there's a few other brokers in the room who I bet have similar experiences. The ghost of STR's future is the scariest ghost of all. Should the town decide to amortize and eliminate short-term rentals, this ghost will eliminate guys like me who had a dream to one day become a full-time resident. Because I was able to rent here, I could live out that dream, and this will negatively impact businesses and retail establishments in town. What's next after amortization? I'll skip that part in the essence of time. The ghost of STR future, however, has a good side too. And it could look like this. This is a good neighbor brochure from the town of Palm Springs, California. I want to read the first paragraph, which says...
I think you can run short on time. Go ahead.
Emma, how much have I got? Can I take the rest of David B's time?
She's not on the list.
Just kidding.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next speaker is Deborah Kirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Deborah Kirk. I live on Mount Lowry.
Please speak toward, yeah, there you
I
go.
live on Mount Lowry here in town, permanent resident for some years. Anyway, I'm against amortization. I do believe and understand that short-term rentals can be very workable. I heard some people say they didn't think so. I also heard someone say that tonight the short-term renters do not contribute to community and charity, which is far from the truth. I can attest that the sweet folks that I host on a regular basis every week are here to attend festivals, car shows. In fact, I posted the judges for the car show the last 3 years. They're here for the car shows, arts and craft shows, and spend lots of money in town. Secondly, back when September of 2022, the UDO established, or our planning group here in the city of Highlands, established what was called a form addendum to short-term rental contract and agreement. And I don't hear anybody mentioning this, but it's a requirement that Mr. Mathis told me about that's being enforced, and we're subject to audit on this, which very clearly states and has to be signed by the renter, by the tenant, stating that short-term rental, you do not exceed 2 persons per room. You cannot have special events or gatherings in excess of that occupational limit. You can't park vehicles in undesignated areas. You cannot have household trash improperly disposed of. They have to use the proper receptacles, and occupants must comply with noise ordinances. Okay? And this is something I'm subject to audit. So I don't know how it's not being enforced. Thirdly, and I believe because of this addendum and the action by the Town of Highlands Planning Department, implementation of this is effective and no further action is required, other than perhaps further enforcement. And additionally, if enforcement is reoccurring or problems are reoccurring, then we need to increase the fines. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next speaker is Donna Davis. Excuse me, I'm having a technical problem.
I'm going to be really, really short.
Okay.
I'm Dinah Davis. I've lived here in Highlands, in town Highlands, 30 years, raised my kids here. Love the town. You know, everybody here is a friend of mine. I am in favor of the amortization in R1 and R2. I'm also a realtor, which puts me in a very slim file of people who believe that those neighborhoods ought to be preserved. I think that when a person looks at a zoning ordinance and looks at what their neighborhood is and what's permitted there, they ought to be able to rely on that. Like our friends here on Dog Mountain who thought that, you know, they were buying in an R1 or R2 district, and suddenly they get there and everybody, you know, they ask the realtors. And I know there was a time when realtors probably told them, yes, yes. I'll tell you that for the past number of years, if a client asks me about something, I say, it's in flux. Don't rely. You know, anything could happen. Zoning ordinances are legal. They are constitutional. They have been used forever. There's a whole branch of municipal law, which we have a lot of lawyers here today, but municipal law is legal. It's constitutional. Zoning is constitutional. It is, you know, very wonderful that we have so many people who serve our country, but we don't just toss out laws because somebody has an idea of what's constitutional. There is settled law on the constitutionality of zoning. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, our next speaker is Mike Magaha.
That's my wife laughing. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you very much for this opportunity. You know, I really didn't want to speak, and but I've listened to a lot. By the way, I've served in the military too, if that matters. I'm concerned that people threaten you with lawsuits and everything. And I'm also concerned with some of the statistics that have been thrown out. 8% of the houses in Highlands, 8% are VRBOs or whatever you want, short-term rentals. And they're telling me that 8% creates hundreds of millions of dollars for the community. I don't buy it. I'm sorry, I just don't. My experience is, and we had a house up here for over 30 years. My son's getting married up here November 16th. I love the community. My experience is on our road, which is a cul-de-sac, when we have renters up there, it creates trash, creates extra traffic, and it actually is dangerous because people don't follow the laws. We are going up, it's 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. We have to slam on brakes, jerk over to the side, and dodge people and be concerned about it more than they are concerned about us. I really think that the homeowners in R1 and R2 have rights, you know, and I'm sorry that people feel that it should be commercial zones, but I just don't see it. It never was set up that way. I encourage you to start amortization as soon as possible. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carol Gable.
Thank you, honey.
And if you'll please step to the mic.
You know, short-term rentals are simply not compatible in a neighborhood. They have completely different goals. A family's lost while a commercial business takes its place. Then the rest of the neighborhood is thrust unwillingly into that short-term rental owners and the destination wedding industry's business plan. All the benefit is theirs. All the downside is ours for the rest of us who've chosen not to rent. Without this proposal, short-term rentals won't just fade away, because if that property sells, the right to rent goes with the sale. And I'm thrilled that the people at Mirror Lake have had a great experience with their short-term rentals, but they don't know that's what's going to happen if those houses sell and somebody else takes over. This is certainly about property rights. It's about many hotel owners who want you to continue their exclusive monopoly with extra property rights that I don't have at the expense of our neighborhoods, instead of making the playing field fair for all. The proposal that's before you tonight actually does that. It puts everybody on a level playing field, which is the right thing to do for all tax-paying homeowners. You know, I've heard many times that this is somehow the fault of older neighborhoods and Highlands for not letting the HOAs ban STRs. That's easy to do in a new development, but it's almost impossible and expensive to accomplish in a decades-old neighborhood. How's it fair to punish residents who either don't choose to or cannot afford to live behind a gate? That's what you're asking. It is not the responsibility of the town to prop up anybody's business model, nor is it the job of family neighborhoods to sacrifice our investment for the business of someone else.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bill Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Push this back up, Carol. My name is Bill Long, and I'm a 31-year resident of Highlands. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I first want to thank you for your hard work, all of the commissioners, whether you agree with my position or not. It's not easy. You work hard. I'm so thankful for what you do on the town on all of our behalfs. Mr. Mayor, at the second of the community plan meetings, I think it was in summer of 2019, they were throwing out the results, among other things, of the survey. And in that survey, the residents were asked whether or not they liked and wanted short-term rentals. And 2/3 said they didn't like it and didn't want it. This was in 2019. As you heard from others in subsequent elections, referendums, the amount of letters that you get, at least 2/3, bordering on 3/4 of the people who respond say that they don't want and didn't want short-term rentals. It was at that same meeting that I stood up, again, 2019, community plan meeting, and said that short-term rentals were destroying our neighborhoods and that they were a commercial activity and as such were prohibited in our R1 and R2 neighborhoods. Missing the point that their very existence was prohibited, the short-term rental investors, like they have today, stood up and said, there have been no complaints about trash and no complaints about noise, so what's the problem? After that meeting, you came up to me and said, first time we'd ever met, where have you been? And encouraged me and others to come and speak up. I responded that I had petitioned the town on 3 separate occasions in person dated back to 2016. Over the last 8 years, along with many others, I've petitioned the town again and again, and now I stand alongside hundreds and hundreds of other neighbors and members of the Highlands Neighborhood Coalition, many of whom are represented here tonight. I don't know why they didn't stay for my speech. And to do the right thing and keep commercial activity in residential neighborhoods separate, like the town has always done. They have been separate historically, in the code and in actual. At those initial meetings, we were first told by the town staff that the code didn't say what it actually said when we read directly from it, noting that it specifically said that the offering of overnight accommodations is defined as a commercial activity, and that commercial activities are prohibited in R1 and R2 neighborhoods. We were given blank stares. And then we were given the incorrect argument that the courts have ruled them to be allowed. And then when that was refuted in a subsequent meeting over the next year, we then said the state legislature will soon pass a law. We're still waiting for that law, Mayor. It hasn't happened. It won't happen. We should do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We are now at the end of the list. I want to thank all of the speakers and everyone who participated in this public hearing. But at this point, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. All in favor, please raise your hand and signify by saying aye. Thank you. It is closed. And then I will entertain a movement for our adjournment.
I make a motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, we're adjourned.